Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. All right, buckle up, because this one's a wild ride about resilience, perseverance, and giving a toxic boss exactly what they deserve. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. The smell of revenge when Kevin pushed too far. This story goes back to my time working at a casino, and while it might seem glamorous, working in the kitchen wasn't as exciting as it appeared. I started when I was still in college, juggling 2 part-time jobs. Initially, my role was as a steward, a fancy term for dishwasher, a job I was already familiar with from my previous restaurant experience. However, working at the casino was different in several key ways. For one, the casino was massive, with multiple restaurants, and as stewards, we were shuffled between them daily. This meant constantly interacting with different people, which I appreciated because it kept the work interesting. The second major difference was that the casino was heavily anti-union, hosting mandatory meetings twice a year to lecture us about how unions were evil. These meetings were accompanied by posters along employee hallways promoting anti-union propaganda. After a while, my boss asked if I wanted to move from part-time to full-time, offering great benefits including medical, dental, and access to legal support, so I took the offer. A few months later, the casino made some major changes that affected all employees. First, they eliminated the sick note policy. This meant that if you called in sick with a doctor's note, they still docked you a point. As a result, people were showing up to work sick, vomiting in trash cans because they didn't want to lose points and jeopardize their raises. Another significant change was the reduction of full-time positions. Those of us who were full-time were safe, but if anyone left, their position wouldn't be filled. The biggest change for my department came when they decided to disband the stewarding department. Our supervisors were still there, but now the chefs and managers of the restaurants would be in charge of us. This meant no more rotating between the different areas of the casino. I was reassigned to the steakhouse, where I worked with 2 fantastic female coworkers, and we formed a solid team. Things were going smoothly, and I started working toward a supervisor position. But when my first attempt to become a supervisor failed, I just accepted it and decided to try harder next time. Then came Kevin. He was the new head chef, replacing the old one who was transferred to the Italian restaurant. At first, Kevin seemed fine. We didn't have much interaction and things were normal. However, about a month after he started, our first real interaction occurred, and it wasn't a pleasant one. It was during the dinner rush, and I was about to get a drink when Kevin stopped me. Kevin: OP, where are you going? Me: just getting a drink before the rush hits. I told the girls I'd be right back. Kevin: then why aren't you using the waitstaff drink fountain? Me: we were told when we started that staff should get drinks from the break room. Kevin: don't give me that. I see the waitstaff getting drinks from there all the time. You're just wasting time. I'm going to have to write you up for this. I was confused. I explained that getting a drink from the break room was the rule we'd been given. As we continued talking, the head chef noticed us and came over to see what was going on. Before I could explain, Kevin took the opportunity to explain his side with a superior look on his face. Chef: Kevin, OP's right. Employees are only supposed to use the drink fountains in the break room. I'm going to have to talk to the waitress supervisor about this. OP, go ahead and get your drink. I need to talk to Kevin in private. I went and got my drink, but after that I was confused. I initially gave Kevin the benefit of the doubt, thinking maybe he just didn't know the rule. But when I spoke to my coworkers, I learned that Kevin had pulled similar stunts with them, cracking down on minor infractions and letting them off with a warning if they didn't question him. I realized that Kevin wasn't as innocent as he seemed. He was just trying to assert dominance. Things worsened as I began noticing his behavior. Kevin started spending more time with the waitstaff and calling my coworkers over to do menial tasks like peeling potatoes, leaving me alone in the kitchen. When I tried to speak to my supervisor, who was a young woman, Kevin would yell at me to get back to work. It became clear that he was trying to undermine me, especially when it came to my relationships with the other staff members. Then came the moment that solidified my suspicions. On one particularly hot summer day, I was working at one of the sinks scrubbing off fried perch residue when Kevin called me to the office. This was odd because I'd only ever been called in for performance reviews or to receive my measly 10-cent raises. I followed him to the office where I was met by a woman I'd never seen before. Kevin, OP, you stink. Woman, shocked. Excuse me? Kevin, backpedaling. I meant OP smells bad. We've been getting complaints about his body odor. The woman, still in the office, looked at Kevin with disbelief and then looked at me. She asked if she could get closer to smell me, and after doing so a few times, she said she didn't smell anything. I explained that I was working in a hot, greasy kitchen with chemicals, and the apron provided didn't exactly help with the heat or the odors. She agreed and told me she'd check the aprons, then told me to cool down in the break room while she had a word with Kevin. This was the turning point. After that, we got new aprons, and from then on, if Kevin had a problem with me, another staff member had to be present as a witness. This really annoyed him, and from that moment, he began yelling at me in public for minor things, constantly trying to make my life miserable. It was clear he was threatened by me and my relationships with the rest of the staff. Things continued to escalate, and I began feeling overwhelmed by the stress at work, especially since I was already dealing with identity theft and other personal problems. My mental health suffered, and I even started considering quitting. But then came the night that changed everything. It was one of the coldest nights of the year, and I'd been working long hours. After the shift, I retreated to the locker room to unwind with a book, but then Kevin showed up, demanding that I go back and clean the dishwasher. He accused me of punching out early and berated me for the state of the dishwasher, despite the fact that the machine had already been cleaned. Kevin, get back to work, OP. You didn't clean the dishwasher, and now you're going to pay for it. I was furious. This was the last straw. Kevin had been making my life miserable for so long, and now he was trying to push me around over something that wasn't even my fault. I walked out of the locker room, ignoring the security guard, and went straight to the kitchen. When I found the stewards working, I explained what Kevin had said and demanded that they let me clean the dishwasher. They were confused, and when the night supervisor arrived, she confirmed that Kevin didn't have the authority to force me to stay late. I was then told to put in my 2-week notice. The next morning, I was called in to meet with management. Kevin was there, looking like he'd been caught in a lie. The supervisor showed me security footage of Kevin going to the locker room and then trying to cover up his actions. When they confronted him, he kept changing his story until he finally admitted what he'd done. The steakhouse manager and other supervisors apologized and asked if I'd reconsider leaving. I told them I would stay, but only if Kevin never spoke to me again. They agreed, and Kevin was eventually forced to leave. In the end, I didn't get the supervisor position I'd hoped for, but I did find stability and strength in standing up for myself. While you didn't get the supervisor position, you earned something far more important: the respect of your peers and the satisfaction of knowing you held your own against a workplace tyrant. It's always heartening to see karma work its magic, especially when the villain is as insufferable as Kevin. And our next story. Fence could ruin relationship with neighbors. We moved into a house at the end of a quiet street, excited about the new place with a small backyard that felt spacious because of an adjacent city-owned lot. Since we have dogs and value privacy, we decided to install a 6-foot vinyl fence within our property line. It seemed straightforward, but our neighbors, a renting couple, made it anything but. From the day we moved in, the husband made himself known. He was overly chatty, but not in a friendly way. Every conversation was sprinkled with passive-aggressive comments. Neighbor, young homeowners, huh? Bet you've got a lot to learn. Don't worry, I'm around if you need advice. You'll probably need it. Me, thanks, but I think we got it under control. Neighbor, oh, by the way, I wanted to buy this house, but I got outbid. Shame, right? Me, oh, really? That's odd. We weren't in a bidding war. Neighbor, awkward laugh. Well, good thing I'm here to keep an eye on things for you. He let his dogs roam off-leash into our yard and even mowed part of our lawn, unasked, to make his property appear bigger. Things escalated when we decided to install the fence. The wife seemed indifferent, but the husband was clearly unhappy. Neighbor, you're putting up a fence? Why? This area feels so open and nice. Me, we have dogs and we want privacy. Neighbor, privacy? You mean cutting us off? That's not very neighborly. When the installation began, his demeanor soured even more. The fence cut off access to a gap between our houses he liked to use for his projects. Neighbor, wait, you're putting the fence there? That's gonna block me from backing my truck in to unload supplies for my work. Me, it's within our property line. You have your driveway for unloading. Neighbor, this is ridiculous. I've been using that spot for years. You're ruining the whole setup. I stayed firm, explaining that the fence was non-negotiable. That's when the passive aggressiveness turned into outright sabotage. One evening, we heard a loud crash. Running outside, we found one section of the fence broken, and there he was, looking sheepish next to his truck. Me, what the hell happened? Neighbor, sorry about that. I didn't see the fence. Guess I cut the corner too tight. Me, you didn't see a 6-foot fence? Seriously? He apologized, and I grudgingly let it slide. I repaired the damage myself, thinking it was a one-off incident. 2 weeks later, another loud crash, same story. Neighbor, whoops. Would you look at that? Didn't mean to do it again. These big trucks are tricky, you know. Me, this is starting to feel deliberate. Do I need to call the police? Neighbor, what? You're overreacting. It's just an accident. Relax. By now, I was livid. I fixed the fence again, but decided to install security cameras. Sure enough, the next week he accidentally hit the fence again, but this time I had footage. I confronted him the next morning. Me, hey, we need to talk. I've got footage of you hitting my fence. Neighbor laughs nervously. Footage? What are you talking about? Me, security cameras. They captured everything. You weren't being careless. You're doing this on purpose. Neighbor, you can't prove that. It's just bad luck, man. Me, bad luck? You're gonna need more than that excuse when the cops see this. I filed a police report and handed over the footage. An officer came by to speak with him, and the neighbor was visibly rattled. Officer, we've seen the video. It's clear that you've been damaging their property intentionally. You're being charged with vandalism. Neighbor, what? Vandalism? I was just parking my truck. Officer, you were warned multiple times. You'll need to answer for this in court. As if that wasn't enough, I also shared the footage with his landlord. When his landlord saw the damage he was causing, they were furious. Not only did he get slapped with a hefty fine, but his rent was also increased, and he was put on notice. The cherry on top? His DIY patio, which was partially on our property, became a target for code enforcement. Turns out it violated several local ordinances. He had to tear it down completely. You own the house and the property. Just as he's free to do what he wants, you are as well. 99.99% of homeowners know this and live their lives accordingly. Fences make good neighbors. They don't destroy them. If the only reason they're nice is to take advantage of your property, that's not a relationship worth sustaining. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.